The heavy blast doors of the Coalition intelligence facility hissed open with mechanical precision. Kexthar stepped through, his four massive arms moving with practiced military. Bearing despite the deep gouges and burn scars that decorated his chitinous exoskeleton like a roadmap of war. The breathing apparatus strapped to his insectoid face wheezed softly. A constant reminder of the plasma damage his respiratory system had sustained during the Battle of Rigel Station. The conference room. Stretched before him like a sterile tomb. Polished metal walls reflected the harsh white lighting, and the air recyclers hummed with that particular sound that meant serious business was about to be conducted. 3 Coalition officers sat at the far end of an obsidian table that could have seated 20, their various appendagized claws. And pseudopods worked busily over glowing data tablets. Commander Vexilon, the lead interrogator, looked up as Kexthar approached. The Altarian's silver skin rippled with barely contained impatience, and his antenna twitched in that way that meant he had a schedule to keep. Behind him, Subcommander Trillick's multiple eyes tracked Kexthar's movement with predatory focus, while intelligence analyst Morden simply continued typing, his 6 fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Sit," Vexilon commanded, gesturing. To the chair across from them, the furniture automatically adjusted to accommodate Kexar's bulk and unusual anatomy. Kexar lowered himself carefully, his breathing apparatus cycling through its filtration sequence. He had been in rooms like this before, but never as the one being questioned. The irony wasn't lost on him. For 8 cycles he had been the one asking questions, extracting information from captured enemies. Now, he was on the other side of the table, about to reveal secrets that might reshape the galaxy's understanding of warfare itself. "State your full designation and service record for the official transcript," Vexilon said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had conducted thousands of these interviews. Kexthar's mandibles clicked once, a nervous habit he had developed during his recovery. Kexthar, of the Hive Clan, Zethros, 4th Reconnaissance Division, Outer Rim Expeditionary Force. His voice was rough, damaged by the same plasma blast that had scarred his breathing organs. "I served in the Tau Ceti campaigns for 8 standard cycles, participating in 47 major engagements and countless minor skirmishes. In your experience with human forces?" Trillick interjected, her multiple eyes blinking in sequence. 3 years of joint operations, 6 months of direct combat engagement. Kexthar paused, his compound eyes reflecting the room's harsh lighting. "I fought beside them, against them, and watched them fight others. What you're about to hear will change everything you think you know about warfare, about what intelligent species are capable of when pushed beyond their limits." The room's atmosphere seemed to shift. Morden stopped typing. Trillick's eyes focused entirely on Kexthar. Even Vexilon's antennas ceased their restless twitching. "Elaborate," Vexilon said simply. Kexthar's breathing apparatus cycled through another filtration sequence as he gathered his thoughts. The memories were painful not just physically but in ways that no amount of medical treatment could heal. The Coalition has cataloged over 2,000 intelligent species across the galaxy. Each has their own approach to conflict, their own understanding of violence and warfare. The Caraxians fight for honor. The Zelthani fight for territory. The Vorthok fight for survival. But humans... He trailed off, his forearms shifting restlessly. Humans fight for something else entirely. Something that doesn't translate well into our languages or our understanding of rational behavior. "Begin with your first direct encounter," Vexilon pressed. "EPLA 438b, according to your preliminary report." Kexthar's compound eyes dimmed as the memories surfaced like creatures from the depths of an alien ocean. It was supposed to be a simple reconnaissance mission. Intelligence indicated a small human research outpost on the 4th moon of Kepler, 438b. 17 personnel. Minimal security, studying local flora and fauna. Standard procedure for dealing with isolated outposts in contested space. His mandibles clicked again, faster this time. "We thought we understood the parameters. We thought we knew what we were dealing with. Every species in the galaxy has protocols. For surrender when faced with overwhelming force, it's basic survival. Instinct, preserve life when victory is impossible. But the humans didn't surrender, Trillic observed, reading from her data tablet. No, the word came out like a death rattle. They didn't surrender. They didn't even negotiate. When we surrounded their facility with 200 of our finest warriors, when we offered them the chance to surrender with honor, their researcher named Dahor responded over the communications array. Gexthar? S voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He said 3 words that still haunt my dreams. Come and take it. The silence in the room was absolute. Even the air recyclers seemed to have stopped humming. That's when I realized, Kexthar continued, his voice growing stronger, that everything we thought we knew about human military doctrine was wrong. They don't fight to win battles. They don't fight to capture territory or resources or even to survive. They fight to ensure that whatever threatens them can never threaten anyone else ever again. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of helpless incomprehension. And that makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The holographic display flickered to life above the conference table, casting blue shadows across Kexthar's scarred face. A 3-dimensional model of Kepler 438b's fourth moon rotated slowly, its barren surface dotted with mineral deposits and the single human research facility that had become his nightmare. The intelligence briefing was thorough, Kexthar said, his forearms gesturing at the display. Orbital scans showed 17 heat signatures inside the facility. Standard prefabricated research modules connected by sealed walkways. 1 small landing pad with a single transport shuttle. The humans had been there for 6 months, studying alien plant life and conducting geological surveys. He paused, his breathing apparatus cycling through another filtration sequence. Command classified it as a Level 2 operation. Minimal resistance expected.
Oh.
My job was to lead the 4th Reconnaissance Division in a quick strike capture the researchers, secure their data, and extract before coalition forces could respond. Commander Vexilin leaned forward, his silver skin reflecting the hologram's glow. What was your tactical assessment? Textbook scenario, Kexthar replied. 200 of our best warriors against 17 civilians. We had plasma rifles, combat armor, tactical drones, and orbital support if needed. The humans had research equipment and whatever personal weapons they might have brought for protection against local wildlife. The holographic display zoomed in on the research facility, showing the detailed layout that Kexthar's forces had studied before the assault. The main laboratory complex sat in the center, surrounded by living quarters, storage units, and specialized research buildings. It looked peaceful, almost inviting in the artificial light. We approached during the local dawn cycle, Kexthar continued, his compound eyes reflecting the tactical display. Standard pincer movement teams Alpha and Beta flanking from the east and west, Gamma team taking the high ground to the north, Delta team blocking the southern approach to the landing pad. Perfect execution of a maneuver we had practiced hundreds of times. His mandibles clicked nervously as the memories came flooding back. I was with the command unit, positioned about 500 meters from the main entrance. Through my optical enhancers, I could see movement inside the facility. The humans knew we were coming. They were running between buildings, carrying equipment, shouting orders to each other. They were preparing to surrender, Trillic asked, her multiple eyes blinking in sequence. That's what I thought, Kexthar said grimly. That's what any rational species would do when faced with overwhelming force. Set up a white flag, prepare to negotiate terms, minimize casualties on both sides. It's basic survival instinct encoded in every intelligent species we've ever encountered. He gestured, and the holographic display shifted to show the positions of his forces surrounding the facility. Red dots marked the locations of his warriors, forming a perfect tactical circle around the blue outline of the human buildings. I activated the universal translator and broadcast on all frequencies. Kexthar continued. Standard coalition protocol. I identified myself, stated our intentions, and offered them one chance to surrender with honor. Their lives would be spared. They would be treated according to galactic prisoner protocols, and they would be released once the current territorial dispute was resolved. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air recyclers and the soft wheeze of Kexthar's breathing apparatus. The response came back within 30 seconds, he said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, male voice calm and steady. No fear, no panic, no attempt at negotiation. Just 3 words in perfect galactic standard. Come and take it. Commander Vexelin's antenna twitched. That's when you initiated the assault. No, Kexthar said, surprising them. I waited. I thought it might be bravado, a negotiating tactic. Maybe they didn't understand the odds they were facing. I had my communications officer explain our numbers, our capabilities, the futility of resistance. I even offered them better terms medical care, comfortable quarters, access to legal representation. His claws scraped against the metal table, leaving small scratches in the polished surface. The same voice came back. I learned later it belonged to their team leader, a xenobiologist named Deho. He said, we understand your terms. You're ours. Leave now. Or we'll send you home in pieces small enough to fit in specimen containers. Analyst Morden looked up from his data tablet. How did your warriors react to such a threat from civilians? They laughed, Kextar said bitterly. 17 scientists threatening 200 combat veterans. It was absurd, comical. I gave the order to advance, expecting the humans to realize their mistake and surrender once they saw our weapons up close. The holographic display shifted again, showing the initial assault formation moving toward the facility. The red dots representing Kexthar's forces began converging on the blue outline of the human buildings. The first indication that something was wrong came when Alpha Team reached the outer perimeter. Kexthar continued. They reported that the humans had modified their environment suits with some kind of reflective coating. Thermal imaging couldn't get clear readings anymore. Visual contact was intermittent due to what appeared to be artificial fog being pumped from the facility's ventilation systems. His breathing apparatus wheezed as he recalled the confusion of those first moments. Then Beta Team reported that the humans had somehow electrified the metal walkways between buildings. Ow. 2 of my warriors took severe electrical burns trying to approach the main laboratory. At the same time, Gamma Team was taking fire from what appeared to be improvised projectile weapons. The humans had somehow weaponized their core sampling equipment. But they were still just scientists, Trillic observed. That's what made it so terrifying, Kexthar replied. It had no formal military training, no combat experience, no standard weapons. What they had was something far more dangerous, brilliant minds that refused to accept defeat. Unlimited creativity and access to equipment that they understood better than we could imagine. The holographic display zoomed in on the main laboratory building. Within the first hour, they had turned their particle accelerator into a directed energy weapon. The physicist on their team, a female named Sujin, had somehow reconfigured the magnetic containment fields to create focused plasma bursts. Meanwhile, their chemist was synthesizing toxins from local plant specimens that our armor's filtration systems couldn't handle. Kexthar's 4 arms moved restlessly as he continued. They used their liquid nitrogen cooling systems to create barriers of ice fused with metal shrapnel from their destroyed equipment. The geologist on their team had rigged seismic charges, normally used for core sampling, to collapse the approaches to their facility, and their biologist was breeding some kind of local insects that seemed to be attracted to the electromagnetic signatures of our equipment. Casualties? Commander Vexelon asked bluntly. 47 dead by sunset of the first day, Kexthar said quietly. Not wounded, dead. The humans weren't just defending themselves, they were hunting us, using their knowledge of the local terrain, their improvised weapons, and tactics that no military academy in the galaxy teaches because they're considered too brutal, too effective, too terrifying to be used by civilized species. His compound eyes dimmed as he stared at the holographic display. By the second day, my warriors were afraid to advance. These weren't soldiers, they were fighting. They were something worse. They were humans who had decided that survival meant making sure their enemies could never threaten anyone again. Kexthar's posture changed noticeably as he shifted in his chair, his forearms moving in a way that suggested deep discomfort with the memories he was about to share. The scarred veteran's breathing apparatus cycled more rapidly, and his compound, eyes seemed to lose focus as he stared past the Coalition officers into some distant horror. After the disaster at Kepler 438b, Command decided I needed a different perspective on human warfare. He began, his voice carrying a weight that hadn't been there before. They assigned me to Joint Operations Coalition forces working alongside human military units in the Proxima system. The idea was to learn their tactics, understand their methods, maybe figure out how to counter them if necessary. The holographic display above the table shifted to show the Proxima system. With its red dwarf star and scattered rocky planets, one world pulsed with tactical markers indicating heavy fighting. Proxima 7 was supposed to be a routine planetary assault, Kextar continued. Separatist forces had established a stronghold in the northern continent. Standard operation orbital bombardment followed by ground assault to secure strategic positions. I was embedded with the human 47th Medical Battalion as an observer. His mandibles clicked nervously. I thought I understood what I was getting into. Medical personnel are supposed to be non-combatants, according to galactic law, not warriors. Every civilized species maintains that distinction. Medical units stay behind the lines, treat the wounded, evacuate casualties. Safe, predictable, rational. Commander Vexelin leaned forward, but that's not what you experienced. The assault began at dawn, Kextar said, his forearms gesturing. As he recalled the battle, 2,000 Coalition Marines supported by 500 human soldiers. The landing was chaotic anti-aircraft fire, plasma mortar. The enemy had prepared better defenses than intelligence suggested. Our dropships took heavy fire on the way down. The holographic display zoomed in on Proxima 7's surface, showing the landing zones and the fierce resistance they had encountered. Red markers indicated enemy positions, while blue dots showed the advancing Coalition forces. My dropship took a direct hit from a surface-to-air missile, Kextar continued, his voice growing quieter. The blast tore through the starboard side, killed 6 Marines instantly, and set the medical supplies on fire. I was thrown against the bulkhead when we crashed. Plasma conduits ruptured, and superheated gas sprayed across my carapace. His breathing apparatus wheezed as he remembered the pain. 60% of my exoskeleton was burned. The plasma had eaten through my natural armor and was cooking the soft tissue underneath. According to Coalition medical protocols, I should have been tagged as a low-priority casualties too severely injured to save with limited resources available. But the humans didn't follow Coalition protocols, Analyst Morden observed. The human medic reached me first, Kextar said. His name was Hyan Wu. He's a young guy, maybe 25 standard years. He took one look at my injuries and started working. Immediately. No triage assessment, no resource calculations, no discussion of my chances for survival. He just started cutting away the damaged sections of my carapace and applying emergency treatments. The veteran's compound eyes reflected the holographic light as he continued. For 16 hours, he worked on me. 16 straight hours without a break. Other medics offered to relieve him, but he refused. Said he had started the job and he was going to finish it. I was conscious for most of its Rillen. Physiology doesn't respond well to human painkillers. His forearms moved restlessly. I watched him work with an intensity I had never seen before. His hands moved with surgical precision, every motion calculated and purposeful. When my breathing apparatus failed, he jury-rigged a replacement using parts from 3 different pieces of equipment. When infection set in, he synthesized antibiotics from the medical fabricator and administered them personally every 2 hours. He saved your life, Subcommander, Trillick noted. More than that, Kextar replied. He brought me back from certain death through sheer force of will. I could see it in his eyes. Failure wasn't an option. Losing a patient wasn't acceptable. He treated my survival as a personal mission, something sacred that couldn't be compromised. The room was quiet, except for the hum of machinery and Kextar's labored breathing. But that's not the part that haunts me, he continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. On the second day, while I was recovering in the field hospital, enemy forces launched a counterattack. They had broken through our perimeter and were advancing toward the medical facility. The holographic display shifted to show the tactical Situation: enemy forces converging on the field hospital, while coalition defenders scrambled to respond. I was lying on a medical bed, still connected to life support systems. When the alarms started blaring, Kexthar said, "Through the transparent aluminum window, I could see muzzle flashes in the distance." The sound of plasma fire was getting closer. Other patients were being evacuated, but I was too critical to move. His mandibles clicked rapidly. That's when Haiyan Wu appeared at my bedside. He was still wearing his medical smock, but he was carrying a coalition assault rifle. He looked down at me with the same caring expression he had worn while saving my life, and he said, "Don't worry. I won't let anyone hurt you." He left his medical duties to fight, Commander Vexilon asked. He stepped outside the medical bay and took up a defensive position near the main entrance. Kexthar continued. From my bed, I had a clear view through the window. What I saw next will stay with me until the day I die. His breathing apparatus cycled through several filtration sequences as he gathered the courage to continue. 37 enemy soldiers approached the medical facility in a coordinated assault formation. Professional troops with military-grade weapons and tactical armor. Haiyan Wu was alone, with just his rifle and whatever medical supplies he could use for cover. The holographic display zoomed in on the medical facility, showing a single human figure facing an overwhelming enemy force. For 10 minutes, I watched him methodically eliminate every single enemy soldier. Not random firing, not panic shooting precise, calculated kills. He used the terrain, the building's architecture, even the medical equipment outside as tactical advantages. Each shot was perfectly placed. Each movement was fluid and efficient. Kexthar's compound eyes fixed on each coalition. Officer in turn. 37 confirmed kills in under 10 minutes. The same hands that had spent 16 hours saving my life had just taken 37 others with surgical precision. Combat effectiveness is important in a war zone, Trillic observed. You still don't understand, Kexthar said, his voice rising slightly. When the shooting stopped, he came back inside to check on me. His hands were still steady from the killing, but when he touched my carapace to check my vital signs, they were gentle, caring. He asked if I was in pain, adjusted my medication, and made sure I was comfortable. His forearms spread wide in a gesture of incomprehension. I watched him cry while treating my wounds, actual tears, because he thought I might not survive. 1 hour later, I watched him smile while cleaning his rifle and counting his ammunition. He had killed 37 sentient beings and saved one, and he felt equally passionate about both achievements. The room fell into uncomfortable silence as the implications of Kexthar's words sank in. Every species in the galaxy has warriors and healers, he continued quietly. Soldiers and doctors, killers and saviors. But they're different individuals with different roles, different training, different purposes. Humans are the only species I've encountered where the same individual can be both simultaneously. His breathing apparatus wheezed as he concluded. They don't just switch between roles, they excel at both with equal dedication. They are angels and demons wearing the same skin, and they can transform from one to the other without warning, without internal conflict, without losing their effectiveness at either function. The lights in the conference room seemed to dim as Kexthar's voice took on a haunted quality. His forearms trembled slightly, and his breathing apparatus worked harder than before, as if the memories themselves were suffocating him. The holographic display above the table shifted to show a desolate moon circling a massive gas giant, its surface scarred with impact craters and military installations. Titan Base was supposed to be impregnable, Kexthar began, his compound, eyes reflecting the pale light of the tactical display, built inside a natural crater formation on the dark side of Europa's sister moon. The separatist forces had spent 2 years turning it into a fortress underground bunkers, overlapping defensive fields, automated turret systems, and a garrison of 8,000 elite troops. The display zoomed in on the base, showing the intricate defensive networks that surrounded it like a spider's web of death. Energy barriers flickered between towering weapons platforms, while underground tunnels connected reinforced bunkers. In a maze of defensive positions, 3,000 human civilians were trapped inside, Kekstar continued, his voice growing softer. Families of the original survey team that had been studying the moon's mineral deposits. When the Separatists took control of the system, they herded all the civilians into the base's lower levels and used them as human shields. Commander Vexelin's antenna twitched impatiently. Standard siege protocol would be to contain the enemy and wait for them to negotiate. That's what any rational military force would do, Kekstar agreed. But Colonel Jamin wasn't operating under rational parameters. He had received personal messages from some of the trapped civilians' children asking when their parents were coming home. Elderly couples who had been celebrating their anniversary when the attack began, scientists who had spent their entire careers studying that moon and now faced execution for their knowledge. The veteran's mandibles clicked nervously as he recalled the human commander's reaction. "Oh, I was present during the initial strategic briefing. Every coalition officer recommended a containment strategy. Cut off their supply lines, prevent reinforcements. Eventually force them to surrender through attrition. Standard military doctrine that had worked for thousands of years across hundreds of species." His forearms gestured erratically. Gaiman listened to every recommendation, thanked everyone for their input, and then said 7 words that changed everything. "We don't leave our people behind. Ever." The holographic display shifted to show the first rescue attempted direct assault on the base's main entrance. Red markers representing coalition forces moved across the tactical map like drops of blood on pale stone. "The first rescue attempt was a disaster," Keksar continued. "Frontal assault with heavy armor support. The Separatists had prepared for exactly that kind of attack. Our forces walked into overlapping fields of fire from positions they couldn't even see. 200 Marines died in the first 10 minutes. His breathing apparatus wheezed as he remembered the carnage. I watched from the command ship as the survivors retreated, carrying their wounded. Any sane commander would have realized the futility of direct assault and changed tactics. But 6 hours later, Jamin ordered a second attempt. "The same strategy?" Analyst Morden asked. "Different approach, same result?" Kekstar replied grimly. This time it was a flanking maneuver through the crater's eastern ridge. The Separatists had sensors that detected our movement hours before we reached the perimeter. They were waiting with concentrated fire from their mobile weapons platforms. Another 150 casualties. The tactical display showed attempt after attempt, each one a different strategy, each one ending in failure and death. Orbital insertions, underground approaches, coordinated strikes with multiple vectors of attack. The red markers kept advancing and being swept away like leaves in a hurricane. By the 10th attempt, I could see the change beginning in the human soldiers, Kekstar said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. They weren't just following orders anymore. Each failed. Rescue mission wasn't just a tactical defeat, it was personal. They had seen the recorded messages from the trapped civilians. They knew the names of the children who were asking for help. His compound eyes dimmed as he stared at the holographic display. The 17th attempt was the worst. Jamin led it personally, taking a strike team through the moon's natural cave system. They got within 50 meters of the civilian holding area before the Separatists detected them. The fighting lasted for 18 hours in those tunnels. Casualties? Sub-Commander Trillick asked. 43 dead, including most of Jamin's command staff, Kekstar replied. But they had gotten close enough to establish direct communication. With the trapped civilians, for the first time in 18 days, those people had hoped that rescue was coming. The holographic display shifted to show intelligence reports and communication logs from the 18th day of the siege. The data. Streams scrolled past in alien languages and tactical symbols that told a story of growing desperation. That's when the Separatists decided to end the siege their own way, Kekstar continued, his forearms beginning to shake. They broadcast a message to our command ship, video feed from inside the civilian holding area, 3,000 human. Faces looking up at the camera with hope in their eyes, believing that rescue was imminent. His breathing apparatus struggled to keep pace with his growing agitation. The Separatist commander appeared on screen, explained that the constant rescue attempts were becoming inconvenient. that the civilians were consuming resources that could be better used elsewhere, that the humanitarian gesture of keeping them alive had been exhausted. The room fell silent except for the hum of machinery and the labored sound of Kexler's breathing. "They executed all 3,000 civilians while broadcasting the footage to our fleet," he said quietly. "Men, women, children, elderly shot down in groups while they were still hoping for rescue." The Separatist commander made it clear that this was the consequence of the human rescue attempts, that their deaths were on Jamin's hands.
Commander?
Vexilin shifted uncomfortably. How did the human forces respond to this setback? "That's when I witnessed something that no species in the galaxy should ever see," Kexthar replied, his voice becoming hollow and distant. "I expected rage. I expected grief. I expected the humans to either retreat in despair or launch a suicidal final assault driven by emotion." His compound eyes fixed on each coalition officer in turn. Instead, they became quiet. Completely, utterly quiet. The change was so profound that even the ship's atmosphere seemed different. The humans didn't rage or weep or shout for vengeance. They simply evolved into something else. "What do you mean?" Trillic asked. "They stopped being soldiers fighting a war and became something far more dangerous," Kexthar explained. "They became humans conducting an extermination. Not for territory, not for resources, not even for victory, for justice. And when humans fight for justice, they don't stop until every last threat has been eliminated." The tactical display expanded to show 12 star systems with tracking data following individual enemy units as they fled across the galaxy. "For the next 6 months, I watched them hunt down every single Separatist soldier who had been involved in the siege," Kexthar continued. "Not just the ones at Titan Base, every soldier in the entire Separatist command structure. They would track a single enemy squad for weeks, following them from planet to planet, learning their routines, their relationships, their fears." His mandibles clicked rapidly as he remembered the methodical precision of the human pursuit. Didn't just kill them. They studied them first, learned about their families, their homeworlds, their reasons for fighting. Then they would appear like ghosts, eliminate their targets with surgical precision, and leave behind evidence of exactly why each person had died. By the end of those 6 months, enemy forces were surrendering to any coalition unit they encountered, begging for protection from the humans, he concluded. Not because they feared death, because they feared what the humans would do to them before allowing them to die. The atmosphere in the conference room had grown thick with tension over the hours of testimony. Forearms no longer resting calmly on the table, but trembling with barely contained agitation. His breathing apparatus cycled more rapidly, creating a rhythmic wheeze that filled the spaces between his words. The holographic displays had been shut down, leaving only the harsh white lighting that made every scar on his exoskeleton stand out like a roadmap of pain. Commander Vexilin exchanged glances with his fellow officers before speaking. "Your testimony has been illuminating, Kexthar. But we need to discuss the real reason you're here." The Rylan veteran's compound eyes fixed on each officer in turn, and something like bitter amusement flickered in their depths. "You want to declare war on humanity?" he stated flatly, his voice cutting through the room's artificial atmosphere like a blade. "I know why I'm really here. You think you can contain them, control them, defeat them, if it becomes necessary?" The silence that followed was telling. Vexilon's antennas stopped their restless movement. Trillic's multiple eyes blinked in perfect synchronization, and even Morden looked up from his data tablets. None of them denied the accusation. "The Coalition Council has concerns," Vexilon finally admitted. "Human expansion has been aggressive. Our military capabilities are growing exponentially. Some members believe that preemptive action might be necessary to preserve galactic stability." Kexthar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter, but the sound carried no humor. "Galactic stability," he repeated, his voice rising to a desperate pitch. "Still don't understand what you're talking about." "Everything I've told you, every battle, every victory, every horror I've described, those weren't humans fighting their own wars." He pushed himself up from his chair with all 4 arms, his imposing frame casting long shadows across the polished table. The movement was sudden enough that Sub-Commander Trillick instinctively reached for her sidearm before stopping herself. Were humans fighting in other people's wars, with other people's rules, for other people's causes? Kexthar continued, his voice echoing off the sterile walls. You've seen them as mercenaries, as allies, as enemies. You've watched them follow coalition protocols, respect galactic law, limit their responses to what the situation demanded. But you've never seen them truly united. Never seen them fighting for their own survival, their own children, their own future. The veteran began pacing, his scarred exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh lighting. Do you want to know what I learned? During 3 years of joint operations, what I discovered that terrifies me more than all the combat I witnessed, Naughtinus Morden said quietly. As humans don't have a maximum capacity for violence, Kexthar replied. It's every other species. And the galaxy has limits, biological, psychological, cultural constraints that prevent them from going too far. We fight until we achieve our objectives, then we stop. We negotiate, we compromise, we find ways to coexist. His 4 arms gestured wildly as he spoke. But humans? They have infinite capacity for both creation and destruction. In the Tau Ceti campaigns, I watched a human medic named Yunji work for 72 hours straight to save Coalition wounded. No sleep, barely any food, just pure determination to preserve life. When she finally collapsed from exhaustion, they had to carry her to a medical bed. The holographic display flickered back to life, showing medical records and tactical reports. From the Tau Ceti system, 6 hours later, she was back on duty, Kexthar continued. Still exhausted, still recovering, but she couldn't stand the thought of wounded soldiers not receiving care. That same week, I watched her squad leader Dong Wu spend 18 hours calculating the exact amount of explosive needed to collapse an entire mountain range. It's not to kill the enemy fleet trapped in orbit, to capture them intact for prisoner. His compound eyes reflected the display's light as he stared at the tactical data. The precision was incredible. It's a little explosive and the ships could escape. Too much and the crews would be killed. He worked out the mathematics to create exactly the right amount of debris to disable their engines without breaching their life support systems. Impressive tactical thinking, Vexilon observed. You're missing the point, Kexthar snapped. The same species that produces individuals capable of such compassion also produces individuals capable of such calculated destruction. And most terrifying of all, they're often the same individuals. He turned away from the display to face the Coalition officers directly. But what makes humans truly dangerous isn't their capacity for violence or their tactical brilliance. Their infinite capacity for patience. They will wait generations for revenge. They will sacrifice everything for peace. They will become monsters to protect innocence, then become saints to redeem themselves. The room fell silent, except for the hum of machinery and Kexthar's labored breathing. During the Proxima campaign, I watched a human sniper named Minho track a single enemy commander for 6 months, he continued. Not because the target was strategically important, but because that commander had ordered the execution of human prisoners. Minho followed him across 4 systems, learning his habits, his schedule, his security protocols. Kexler's mandibles clicked nervously when he finally took the shot. It was during the enemy commander's daughter's wedding ceremony. Minho had waited specifically for a moment when his target would be surrounded by family, experiencing joy and love. He wanted the commander to die knowing that someone cared enough about justice to spend 6 months of their life, ensuring it was delivered. That sounds like revenge, not justice, Trillick observed. To humans, they're the same thing, Kexthar replied. I thought, and that's what you don't understand about the war you're considering. You think you're planning a military campaign against another species. But if you attack humanity, if you threaten their worlds, their families, their way of life, you won't be fighting soldiers or warriors or even monsters. He moved toward the door, his scarred form dominating the room's sterile atmosphere. You'll be fighting humans, humans fighting for their own survival, their own children, their own future. And when humans fight for those things, they don't follow anyone else's rules. They don't respect anyone else's limitations. They don't stop until the threat is completely, permanently, utterly eliminated. At the threshold, he paused, his breathing apparatus cycling through a filtration sequence. That sounded like a death rattle. You asked me to testify about human military capabilities. Here's my final assessment. Don't fight them. Don't threaten them. Don't give them a reason to show you what they're truly capable of when they stop holding back. The corridor light behind him created a silhouette that seemed larger than life, casting shadows that reached across the conference table like grasping claws. Because if you do, his voice dropped to barely above a whisper. If you force them to fight for their very existence, you won't be facing the humans I've described in my testimony. You'll be facing something this galaxy has never seen before: humans, with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The door sealed behind him with a soft hiss, leaving the three Coalition officers alone in the sterile conference room. The holographic displays flickered and died, plunging them into uncomfortable silence broken only by the hum of air recyclers in the distant sound of starships moving through the space dock outside. Commander Vexilin was the first to speak, his voice barely audible. Recommendation? Subcommander Trilicus' multiple eyes blinked in sequence as she considered. The human expansion can be contained through diplomatic means. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, mutual defense pacts. Analyst Morden nodded slowly. Economic benefits of cooperation far outweigh the risks of confrontation. Vexilin's antenna twitched as he made his decision. I'll inform the Coalition Council that military action against humanity is inadvisable at this time. The following day, the Coalition's secret declaration of war against humanity was quietly shelved, filed away in archives that would never be accessed again. The three officers who had heard Kexthar's testimony never spoke of it publicly, but word spread through unofficial channels. Within a month, every major species in the galaxy had reached the same conclusions. Some threats were better left undisturbed. Humanity continued its expansion across the stars, never knowing how close they had come to a war that would have changed the galaxy forever. And in the depths of space, on worlds where Coalition forces still served alongside human units, veterans like Kextar watched and waited, hoping that the universe would never see what humans were truly capable of when pushed beyond their breaking point, the end.